February 15th, 2019 meeting of the Dover Area School Board. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Benko, could we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Britton? Mr. Cook?
He left.
He left.
Mr. Deschaux? Here. Mr. DeLauder?
Here.
Mr. Eifert?
Here?
Mr. Emick?
Here.
Mrs. Herman?
Here.
Mrs. Mealy? Here. Mr. Rawhauser?
Here.
7 members present.
Just wanted to clarify something for the board real quick there with Mr. Cook. He just found out that his mother-in-law passed away, so he had to leave unexpectedly, so you're aware of that now. First, we have our communications area with our student board representatives, so Sarah and Gigi.
For the elementary report cards will be going home to elementary students on Thursday, January 24th. Our elementary schools are gearing up for the end of the quarter with our proud initiatives such as the Soaring Eagle Award. Students will be participating in a Buck a Book program to help raise funds for the York County literacy. For the secondary report, the high school will host College and Career Day tomorrow. This event features over 75 community members, a job fair, and mock interviews. Over the holidays, DHS held several charity drives. Students and staff provided for 2 families through a Catch a Star program and collected over 200 pairs of socks to donate to local shelters. On January 23rd, DHS will host 8th grade night. This night provides an overview of what to expect as students transition to high school and features each department available to answer questions about courses. On February 4th, the high school will host its annual STEM Summit. All 10th grade students will participate in a series of STEM challenges with the support of Junior Achievement. IS students participated in the Math Counts competition at York College on January 15.
Intermediate school students participated in Math Counts competition at York College on January 15th. Dodgeball competitions are occurring during lunchtime recess in an effort to raise money for the American Heart Association. The championship match will be held on February 14th. The high school theater class performed at the intermediate school on January 4th. May Day, the title of the play, featured various types of bullying situations students may encounter and provided a means for students to escape or intervene. Interested 8th grade students toured York County Vocational Technical School on January 7th. Intermediate school students will participate in Spirit Week during the week of January 21st. This week will conclude with a Spirit Assembly on Friday, January 25th. Soaring Eagle Luncheon will be held on Friday, January 25th. Paperless report cards at the secondary level will be available for parental viewing on Thursday, January 24th. STEM night will occur on Tuesday, January 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. Students will be able to engage in various types of STEM activities throughout the evening. For fine arts, during December and January, Dover Area High School hosted all of the holiday concerts for the district. A big congratulations goes out to all the students whose talents and hard work made the concerts a success. For athletics, our cheerleading squad competed in state championships this past weekend in Hershey. The team qualified for semifinals, finishing in 14th in the state in small division. Congratulations to our cheer team on this accomplishment. Elijah Sutton scored his 1,000th point in his career earlier this month. He joins an exclusive list of alumni who have reached this milestone. Congratulations, Elijah.
Okay. Any questions from our board members for our representatives tonight? A lot of great things happening yet again. Thank you very much, ladies. You're welcome to stay or welcome to head out, whichever you would prefer. Okay, we will move on now to our presentations and celebrations. First, we have Mrs. Kroom and Mrs. Benko with the Future Ready Index data.
Okay. So Dr. Maloney is going to present our Future Ready Index data presentation. And just to remind you, to bring you back to last year, Prior to this year, we would present to you our school performance profile. And every school district and every school building in the state of Pennsylvania would get a score. Well, that hasn't gone away, but the state is only using that for teacher evaluation and principal evaluation. So while we think it's public, we're not exactly sure how to find it. It is available to us, but it is no longer used with the public. It has changed to be the Future Ready Index. So it is a brand new system to show you tonight. So Dr. Maloney is going to do her best to explain as best she can what this looks like. So first, again, like we said, we do still have the school performance profile. And if you take a look at that, this was last year's school performance profile for each of the different buildings. And we gave you a little background on the year before and the year before that. We had some growth in some areas, which we were very pleased with. And just a reminder that for all of the buildings except the high school, really, it truly reflects student growth and student achievement. So there are the scores. At the high school, it does add some other things in there. I think attendance is also included at all 3 levels. So this, again, is primarily used for our teacher evaluations and our principal evaluations, and it's not going to be something that you will see as often anymore. But we did want to share this with you because this is something you have seen before. All right, Dr. Maloney,
You were gonna, okay,
you ready?
I'm ready. So,
Okay.
as Mrs. Kroom said, the Future Ready Index is new this year, and I think we talked about it a little bit at some of our committee meetings before. The purpose is to really communicate progress in different indicators. So elements of the display that you're going to see for state assessments, when you see school performance, that's the local school performance. So if it could be the specific school by name, and it measures the performance on each indicator. It's reported by all student groups, not by subgroup, is what you're going to see, and it represents a percentage for most indicators. You're also going to see state averages, and then the statewide 2030 goal. That's an ESSA requirement, and what that is, PA's aligned federal accountability goals that reflect an annual interim target over 13 years. They're color-coded. For the achievement indicators. You're going to see blue, green, and red, and you're familiar with that from looking at PVAS and those kinds of things. But what this means is that if you see blue, it meets or exceeds the statewide goal. So that goal for 2030, it exceeds that. The green meets or exceeds the interim target, and the red means we're not meeting statewide the goal or the interim target. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, or it gets very confusing, but I'm going to try to explain it enough that it makes sense. So,
And this is public. You can log on and go see all of this.
well, actually, the one we're in now requires a log on because it's just our school district, and the reason we're doing that is because when you're in the public site, when you back out, you get the whole list of school districts. So it makes it a little more streamlined. If you could click on Dover Elementary, just because it's the one on top. So, I can't really see that, but as I said, there's 3 main categories here. Thank you. It's state assessment measures, on-track measures, and then college and career measures. So if you look at the state assessment measures, you can see the first is proficiency, proficient or advanced in English language arts. Then the next is academic growth in English language arts. The next is percent proficient and advanced in mathematics or algebra, and then academic growth expectations in mathematics or algebra. And you can see that they're all green. So that means that they are meeting the expectation or for the interim target and also for the growth in those areas. So if you would click on the bottom where it says View State Assessments and scroll up. So then you see, as I said, we're green because if you look at the percent proficient or advanced in English language arts, I'm on the far left, it's 70.4. That's Dover Elementary's score combined in all their tested grades. The state average is 63%, and then the statewide goal is, the 2030 goal is 81.1. So what we have is we have then interim targets out through 2030 that we have to attain each year in order to maintain that green status. So then if you look for math, you can see the same, the number of proficient and advanced. That's Dover Elementary score, and then the statewide average, and then the statewide 2030 goal. And then to the right, you see that's science. And you can see proficient and advanced students at Dover Elementary are 93.2, and I have to say, from our analysis, that's the highest number of students scoring proficient and advanced in our intermediate unit at Dover Elementary. And then the statewide average is 64.3, and the statewide 2030 goal is 83%, and that's why we're blue, because we've already exceeded that statewide goal, that 2030 goal. So, and then it shows meeting annual growth, the growth, and again, we met our targets in ELA and math and exceeded the target in science. Okay? So yeah, if you can go back up, and then you see where it's grayed out and it says on track measure. Yeah. Thank you. You scroll up, English language proficiency, the IS means insufficient sample, so we do not have, you have to have 20 students in a particular tested grade span in order to have enough data. We do not, so we don't have a number there. But if you look at attendance, if you scroll up, the percent of students with regular attendance is 94.7, the statewide average is 85.4, and then the state performance standard is 94.1, so we are blue because we exceeded the statewide performance standard. And that's based on 90%, students must attend school 90% of the time. If they fall below that, they're considered chronically absent, and that's how those numbers are calculated. Okay? And then if you go up, again, Jen, to the grayed out college and career ready measure, you can see that 100% of our students met that benchmark, and high school, and then the state average, and then of course the state performance standard. And that's new this year, that tracking. And then we don't have a graduation cohort at Dover Elementary, so we don't have any data there. Okay, so if you back out and go to the high school, I believe is next, and we're only going to do an elementary example and a secondary example. So if you look at the high school, same thing, the state assessment measures are on the left, and you can see that we met the interim target in English language arts, and we met the interim target in growth in English language arts. We met the interim target in math, but we did not meet the target in growth in math. So if you would click on that, view state assessments. So again, you can see that our proficiency is 77.2 at our high school. The statewide average is 63, and then the statewide 2030 goal is 81.1. In math, we're at 69.5%, statewide average 45.5, the 2030 goal is 71.8. So then when you look at science, which is the biology keystone, you see that our proficiency rate is 60.1%. Statewide average is 64.3, and the 2030 goal is 83%, but yet we still met the interim target. That's because our district, our high school's interim target was 58.8, and so we exceeded that, and therefore we met the interim target. So we'll have to then continue to do that throughout the next 13 years to maintain that. So then if you look at the growth, we met the growth standard in ELA, but we did not meet the growth standard in math or science. So if you could go back up to the, on-track measures. So again, insufficient sample for our English language proficiency. And then with attendance, you can see that our attendance rate was 79.3%. The statewide average was 85.4, and the state performance standard is 74.1. Therefore, we did not meet the performance standard and do have a plan in place to correct that. So, and then the college and career ready measures, again, 99.6%. So and the statewide average is 91.8, and the statewide performance standard is 78%. And then you can see our graduation groups, a four-year cohort at 81.2, statewide is 86.6. The statewide 2030 goal is 92.4, and then our five-year cohort. And the reason that's gray is it's the same data as the previous year. So that's that, and you'll be able to, you can, if you log on to the public site, you can look at, this is what the public site looks like. You can type any school in there that you want to find, and you'll be able to look at each of the schools. You can compare schools. So, like I said, we used ours that we log into to make it a little easier to navigate.
And if you're used to looking at the school performance profile, if you've gone to that website, if you type that in, it will take you here. So you can't even find the school performance profile on the old site, but it'll take you to this new site.
Okay? Oops.
So we do have some highlights that we are very excited about. We are very proud that in fourth grade at Dover Elementary is ranked third in ELA out of 60 schools in the intermediate unit. In fourth grade is ranked fourth in math out of 60 schools. And as Dr. Maloney said, in fourth grade is ranked first in science out of 60 schools. In sixth grade, they're ranked third in ELA out of 40 and second in math out of 40. North Salem is in sixth grade is ranked sixth in math out of 60 schools. And then
I'm not clicking.
next.
Try now.
There we go. Weigelstown in third grade, 82% proficient advanced. It was ranked ninth in ELA out of 67 schools. And North Salem and Live both exceeded the standard for demonstrating growth in ELA in tested areas. They were both blue. And we talked a little bit about the school performance profile a little while ago, because we do still have that. And if you want to click on that, the intermediate school ranked 7th out of 15 York County intermediate schools, middle schools.
Jen, can you go to that tab? Remember yeah.
There we go. So if you take a look at that, so we were pleased there. And then, as you know, we said we do need to do some work in the high school. So out of 17 county high schools, ELA, algebra, and bio proficiency, we ranked 14 out of 17, and attendance rate and graduation rate are 16 as well. And we do have plans in place for all of these, and a very large part of the attendance and grad rate plan is to assure that our data collection methods are correct. So we're working very hard with the guidance department and the attendance secretary just to make sure we are reporting students correctly to the state.
So there's new designations under ESSA, and the designations are comprehensive support and improvement, which they're calling CSI schools. So they're the lowest performing 5% of all schools receiving Title I funds, and any high school that, whether they're Title I or not, if their graduation rate is less than 67%. And then there's what's called ATSI, Additional Targeted Support and Improvement, and performance by one or more student groups that's below the CSI cut points. And there's about 200 schools with this designation. And if you're in that designation, you're required to notify parents that of the students in that school. And our high school is identified as an ATSI school. And the reason for the designation is because our students with disabilities fell below the cut score indicators of the comprehensive school improvement scores. And what that means is, so they took all the scores from those comprehensive school improvement scores and took the lowest score. And if any of your subgroups, or even if your all student group, fell below any one of those, you were identified for this targeted school improvement. So you can see that the in achievement for ELA and math, the cut score was 31.5, and we had a 21.1%. Our growth for PVAS, you can see was the cut score was a -1, and ours was a -3.83. The graduation rate at 79.34 and 5, and ours was 62.5. And then again, our English language proficiency, we did not have enough students to have a sample. Our regular attendance, it was 76.12, and ours was 66.91. So with this, the requirement is that you have an action plan. So we put what our district-wide action plan is, because these are all the things that we're working on for all of our schools. The standards-aligned curriculum, the research-based instructional practices, analyzing our data and really using that data protocol, our administrative walkthroughs, the supports that we have for the social and emotional supports for our students, positive behavior, instructional supports, and then specific to the high school, we're really looking at identifying meeting the needs of students. We're doing focusing on co-teaching, specifically in 9th grade, really more effective scheduling with our personnel, looking at all of our resources and how we can better use them. This, again, implementation of the standards-aligned curriculum, looking at the transition services, and even transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, and what we can do better to support our students, school to work and college ready, just as we are doing for all of our students, attendance protocols and our SATE process. And we're really utilizing the IU and PDE supports to further develop our improvement plan. So this is all very new this year. So we've attended a few meetings. We've had a consult with the IU liaison, and there's another meeting on February 4th. And we'll further develop this plan, but we intend to have a committee of people really sit at the table and look at what do we need to do to establish a sustainable plan, because we'll have this plan for at least 3 years. So they'll redesignate schools every 3 years. So again, I think we've been doing a lot of these things and really focusing on a lot of these things, and it is representative of the larger population and all students. And I think we feel like we have a really good jump on it at this point. So overall, though, I think we feel pretty good about the direction that we're moving and the things that we have in place. So if anyone has any questions. Oh, I clicked on mine and it didn't move.
Could you go back to the chart with the intermediate school? I just wanted to ask a couple questions on that.
This one?
Yeah, because I don't want to gloss over that too quickly because of where the intermediate school had been for so long. I think that number is pretty impressive at this point. So as you dig down farther into the data related to that shift there, how does that compare to the other middle schools throughout the county? What are we seeing that's making that number move to that position? What's shifting that at this point?
I think if you look at some of the other tabs, and it's just our growth, I think really helped us if the first tab, Jen, to the left, yeah. And you have to scroll over. I'm sorry. Yeah. I think if you look at what's difficult with this chart is that a lot of middle schools are 6, 7, and 8, so the grade spans are different, and that's why the numbers of schools were different when we were doing the reporting. But I think it's our growth.
And then I know there were a lot of statewide comparisons there. Do we have county percentages that we can compare to a county average compared to a state average too? Because there's such diversity across the state, very rural areas, very urban areas. Just wondering if we have something that's very similar.
I have for every building how we rank in the intermediate unit, but I have that on my bulletin board in my office. There's so much data we could share with you, so I can definitely share that with you. Absolutely. When we tried to decide what we wanted to share with you, I put all that together thinking we would, but it would have been pages and pages because it's every test, every grade level. It just would have been a lot, but I can absolutely share that with you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else have questions? Okay.
I think just one more thing. We did post a notification on Skyward for parents, so relative to the TSI designation, as we were required to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maloney. Okay, Mr. Perkins, safe to say, you're up next.
Hello, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about the Safe to Say program, which went into effect actually yesterday. The Safe to Say program was enacted as part of Act 44. It was actually a tip line. We're going to talk a little bit more about how it works and everything, but it's part of the Act 44 mandate that went into effect this summer. And as part of the law, it stipulated that this had to be live yesterday. So with that said, the Safe to Say program is a life-saving, changing program that works with students as far as recognizing signs and signals of individuals who may be at risk for suicide. Might be a risk suicide or risk of hurting other individuals. And the crux of the whole program is this is the tip line. It's a app, it's a website, and it's a hotline. The Office of the Attorney General is the one that's actually overseeing the entire program, and they have actually partnered with the Sandy Hook Promise program. Sandy Hook Promise is coming out of the Sandy Hook school shooting, and it's a statewide program that they've implemented in several states across the country. Basically, when we look at violence across schools, we see that 37% of violence, bullying are sent electronically, with 28% being through social media. 80% of school shooters have told someone of their plans. And out of that, 69% tell more than one person. Most of the mass shootings that we've seen over the last several years have been planned for more than 6 months. And then one of the other statistics is up to 70% of the people who complete suicide tell someone their plans or give some other warning signs. But unfortunately, a lot of these signs, communications aren't shared with anybody. You know, those kids that hear this don't want to be that kid that rats out their friends. The parent doesn't want to be that parent that's always calling the police because they heard Johnny said so-and-so. Perhaps students aren't comfortable calling 911, or, you know what, they're always kidding around, they don't mean anything. So a lot of this goes unreported. The Safe to Say Something program teaches our middle school and high school youth and our staff, parents, guardians, how to recognize the warning signs and signals, especially within the social media, and then to do something about it. If you hear something, say something. It's a fairly easy process. As far as the overall process, it's step one is submit, Office Attorney General manages it, and then the school team sets out for disposition. For the tip submission, parent, student can submit it through an app, a website, or a 24/7 hotline. Once they call or submit the tip, it goes to the Office of Attorney General's Crisis Center. The Crisis Center then will sit there and evaluate and talk to the tipster and get as much information as they can. They are trained then to take that information and categorize it into either life safety or non-life safety concerns and threats. Life safety is something that's imminent, it's in progress. When they categorize one of these tips as this, it immediately comes to the school district and comes to the York County 911 Center. This is 24/7 these tips are sent. So it doesn't matter Saturday at 1 a.m. They're sending these tips out and contacting everybody. It may not be an email, it's usually a phone call, and they just start calling the team. But they might be dating violence, could be suicide, anything along those lines. The non-life safety, crime and violence, and there's also non-life safety. Those are sent between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. The crime ones include sexting, theft, could be truancy, and non-life safety would be things like bullying, verbal abuse, some other type of complaint. But those are sent between normal school working hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Once they get that information, again, they send it to the school team and to County 911 as needed. Once we, as the school team, receive it, or law enforcement receive it, we're going to assess the tip, intervene as necessary, and take any proactive measures and actions as needed. Only the school team can close out a tip through this program. Law enforcement cannot close it out. Our school district team is comprised of myself, Kirsten Johnson, Smita Weekland from the high school, and Terry Landis from the intermediate school. Now, it's not to say that we're going to have other people that aren't involved. We're the ones that are going to receive the initial tip and then send it out according to who it needs to go to. As far as reporting rates, 3 to 6% of the population trained will submit a call once all students are trained. We're going to see a huge influx, they've said, in the first 48, 72 hours. Approximately 40% to 60%, they're saying, are actually going to be legitimate calls. It says down there about the hoax and false claims, half to 1%. Talked to Bill James from York County Emergency Management this afternoon, and he was meeting with PASBO. They reported they had 14 false calls yesterday. The nice thing is, out of those 14 calls, the Office of Attorney General was able to reach out to all 14 of those individuals that submitted those tips, and those people will not making those tips anymore. They've been highly encouraged not to. So as far as who owns the data, Attorney General's office has stated that the school system or the districts with the student information is being protected through the state and federal laws. If a tipster is suicidal or in a crisis state, state and federal laws do allow the anonymity to be broken if possible. And then again, if somebody abuses the system, we can certainly look to some type of court order to try to uncover the anonymity, but they said, they will not do anything without a court order from the Attorney General's office. So again, the Commonwealth launched yesterday. We will be conducting our training for our 7th to 12th grade students and staff beginning the week of the 4th, and Mrs. Weekland and Mrs. Landis are going to be taking the lead on that. And then during that same time, we'll also be sending materials to the parents as well to give them more information and give them heads up as to what's going on. So with that said, what questions do you have?
So are they going to train kids or work with kids at the middle and high school, not elementary?
Correct. Now, that's not to say, though, that we wouldn't have maybe like a Dover Elementary student or a Wagglestown student submit a tip or call, but they have been made it very clear, only your intermediate and high school students.
I guess my concern with that is, well, concern and question, I mean, our intermediate school will soon be 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yes.
Correct.
And I know, just from being a parent of 6th graders, that those kinds of things are talked about all the time among 6th graders. And so I guess my concern is, are we going to lose a lot of kids there that could be trained, would be old enough to understand the training and be able to utilize the system?
That is something, according to what the Attorney General's stipulation is we're looking first at our 7th through 12th graders.
They want us
but
to
that's
look at them
something
first.
But that is something, though, that then we could roll out to 6th grade. And obviously, then once we transition to a 6th, 7th, 8th building, then we will be training those students as well. But we could certainly, in the interim, look at training those other kids.
Now, last week, they did test the system. So everyone got it. I also get the call. Dr. Maloney gets the call, and Mrs. Benko get the call. We're kind of watching. Really, the reason why the people who are on the team because they actually can interact with the call and provide information. So one of the assistants might have dealt with a student during the day, and this tip comes in and it matches something they dealt with. So that's why they're the particular people. But as we roll this out and see how our students are going to react to this and how they react to the training, that was really key. I think the fact that those two ladies are doing the training together at both buildings, so everyone hears the same message and we can see how this goes and how this works. But yeah, we're expecting a little uptick probably in the evening for a couple days until it settles down a little bit. So, and this is mandated, so we don't have a choice but to use this program.
So this is every student 7 to 12.
Yes.
How do you plan on implementing the training? Is it a small group? Is it everybody in the auditorium?
Yes. Everybody in the auditorium.
Okay.
Isn't that what we were thinking? By grade levels, yes. Yeah, and we have that all scheduled and know when we're going to do that. And you had to wait till after it opened to do it because they expect as soon as you do it, they'll make phone calls.
So every grade will get this every year? I mean,
Yes.
let me say
Yes.
that again.
Yes.
Like 7th grade would get it in 8th grade and 9th? And
Yes, we'll have to do it every year. And we want, the teachers are also going to have to attend the training with the students because the teachers have to be trained. So we figured just let them come with the students so they can hear it as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Brad.
Are you making parents aware that you're doing this training?
Are we?
Are parents going to get a letter about any of this? I'm just curious.
We're going to, we haven't gotten that far. I think we were going to put something on the website and send out a skyward about it to look at the website. Is I think what we were going to do, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our first public comment period. This is for items on or off of the agenda. So if you have anything you would like to state, please come to the microphones and state your name and address for the record. Okay, with nobody moving, we will go to Board President's communication. We did have an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel items that are on the agenda. Mr. Pratt also provided us with an update on the Washington Township situation, which has again ruled in our favor with the situation going on there for many years now. I did also want to thank Dr. Maloney for the presentation on the data. I know there's a lot of numbers to crunch there and a lot of information, but we certainly have a lot of bright spots there. We also have some challenges as well to address, and I know I have confidence in everybody to take care of that. So thank you to all of you for your hard work with that. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not thank Mrs. Heidler for the delicious meal that she prepared for the board prior to tonight's meeting. We're all in a food coma up here from our stuffed chicken breast. And also thank you to the elementary students who sent us a whole bunch of thank you cards.
We so
for
enjoyed
what we
them
do
during
on the
dinner.
board.
They're awesome.
They apparently really love their iPads and field trips.
Yes.
So that was the common theme all throughout. So thank you to all of them for that as well. So with that, we will move on to the next item under Board President's communication. And at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to deny 2018-2019 grievance number 1 from the Dover Area Education Association as per the enclosure.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Benko?
Jen, it still says motion to approve / deny. Should, oh,
That
okay,
exact motion in there, so currently it says motion to deny.
okay. I didn't get that.
There we go. And the motion carries. We'll move on to our policy committee report. Mrs. Kroom.
So we had a policy committee meeting this week, as a matter of fact, and we talked about a number of policies. The first one, policy 226, searches. This policy was last revised in 2006. We had an additional policy of canine searches. So we are in the process of combining them, and we're putting them into one policy. It has been reviewed by the solicitor, and it's going to be sent to Safe and Supportive Schools in February, hopefully for board approval in March. Dating violence, policy number 252 is a new required policy by PDE. We use the recommendation by PSPA. We also reviewed it with our solicitor, and that is on the agenda for your vote tonight. Policy 339, uncompensated leave. We reviewed that and recommended we want two separate policies, but in the 300s. 339.1 is uncompensated leave for administrators and professionals, and 339.2 is uncompensated leave for support staff. They have been placed on the Human and Fiscal Committee agenda for Thursday evening to be looked at, hopefully with approval in February. Policy 610, Again, purchase is subject to bid and 626 federal fiscal compliance. These are all updated to reflect changes in state bid requirements. And finally, and I think, is that on tonight for approval? I think it might be.
610 is.
610 is, okay. And then finally, also on for board approval tonight is a contract with PSBA to do a complete review of all Dover policies. This will take about 1.5 years, and it will take some work, but we will be assured that all of our policies are up to date and aligned to the law, and so that is on your, up for approval tonight as well.
Okay. Any questions for Mrs. Kroom? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda for the evening. So at this time, I would like to enter. Oh, I skipped right over the minutes. I'm sorry. Let's go back.
Yep.
Got to approve something else. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 13th, 2018 board meeting.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? Motion carries. We'll chalk that up to the food coma. And I'd also like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 4th, 2018 board reorganization meeting.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve all items listed under the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I would like to ask Mrs. Kroom if she would go over a lot of the new contracts and existing contracts that are on here. This is a lot of stuff that happens on an annual basis, just so we have some clarification for the public.
So, starting with item 8.13, Addendum A to Agreement. This is with Specialized Education of Pennsylvania. We already have an agreement with them. We have a student who is attending there, a special education student. We are looking to add an additional seat. 8.14 is a contract for translation services. This is, sometimes we have difficulty getting translators when we have IEP meetings or parent conferences. This particular service is very simple to use, and it has something like 150 languages. You just phone in, and it's very easy to use. We pay as we use it, so that is on for approval as well. 8.15 and 8.17, Presley Ridge and SAM, they both provide case management to regular ed and special ed students in Dover, even though SAM tends to be heavier in special ed. These agencies receive their funding through student insurance. What is being approved is for us to allow their case managers to come in and access students in the school. 8.16 is a contract with WellSpan Philhaven. This is a yearly contract, and it is a mental health provider. Again, it allows them to come in and access our student in school. River Rock is alternative ed placement, regular ed students. That we purchase that per seat, and at this time, I think we are looking to purchase 2 seats. Again, I talked about the PSBA policy review. That is on there as well. SRO, $25,000 grant that we received through the security grant, the safety and security grants, plus we need to transfer approximately $50,000 so we can have a second SRO for the remainder of the school year, which we are very excited about. There's a contract with the LIU for E-rate consultation. This many districts get E-rate every year. We have not in a couple years. So this will help us get better rates, differing percentages, and they get their consultation fee as a percentage from the funding that we get back. So that's how they get that. The Heritage Senior Center. The owner is gifting land to the Heritage Senior Center. He's had a waiver of clean and green taxes, and so the school district, the township, and the center all have to agree that those taxes do not need to be paid back at this time. So that is what is on there at this time. 8.29, we are going out for bid on our transportation services. Our services are up for next year. Dover has not gone out to bid in a long time, and it's just fiscally responsible to do so, just to see what new offerings other companies have. So that's just the approval for us to go out to bid. We will bring that back to you in a couple months. 8:30 and 8:31, that's a contract with Delta T Subservice. This is for nurses and PCAs. This is a contract that we only pay when we use their services. Both of those areas, PCAs especially, we really struggle when they're out, and sometimes we're short on PCAs. And as we get to the end of the year with nurses, we often have field trips that need nurses to attend, and we just don't have extra nurses. So this will allow us to send nurses for students who need that. And finally, 8.32 is a contract with Jostens, a free contract to us. We already contract with Jostens for graduation, all our graduation stuff and some other things. And we are entering into a 5-year contract to keep doing that with Jostens, but they are going to do some free branding for us as we move into the new high school and the new middle school. And we are painting eagles and writing Dover area school district all over the place. It is very important that we have one Dover Eagle, and we write Dover area school district a couple ways, not a million ways. And our colors are our colors and not different colors. So what this free service is going to do is work with us to help determine what does that eagle look like and what does that block letter look like. Then from there, we just take that information and we use it as we update all of our athletic equipment and what does the eagle look like on the gym floor and those kinds of things. So is there any other questions on anything else in the consent agenda that I missed? I know it's a lot of stuff.
I don't have a question for you specifically, but I do just want to note that there are numerous curriculum items up for approval. I just want to thank Dr. Maloney as well as all the teachers that have, I'm sure, spent a lot of time looking into this curriculum and developing this curriculum for them. So again, I just want to again thank them for their hard work on this.
I had 2 items I wanted to ask and comment on. The first one is 803, the list of the early graduates. Mr. Wasser, we just thought that seemed like a really big list this year compared to other years, so we just wanted some clarification on why it's so different.
So in previous years, those students have come to the board often in chunks. As a student applies in September, October, November, we would send the list, and we never really had to pull a kid back, so you never saw it. Rather than potentially pull a student back and to let the students know graduation has an endpoint, they all come in at one lump sum. The other thing is that this year we had a higher number than usual of students who had been retained at an earlier grade level who have now caught up with their class. So we had a number of students who had met the requirements and now have decided to go on. We do also have a higher number of students who through Mr. Benton's program have done work placements in the fall who have been offered full-time employment. So rather than stay with us, they're going out to a full-time employment starting now and still graduating. So those 3 factors kind of push that list up. Really, it's the number of kids over time coming back, but we have seen more students moving back into that class and having opportunities afterwards.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Just one other thing I wanted to comment on, and that was the donations category. I think it's important to note there were 2 significant donations made. The first is that the district has received shelving units from Datum Storage, valued at about $1,700 for our STEM program. So I think that's very nice of the company to do that for the district. And then we also are receiving a $1,000 donation for a classroom at North Salem Elementary. It's from JB Hunt Transport. They have a contest where their drivers can nominate their child's classrooms for a chance to win a $1,000 donation in school supplies. And one of their drivers happens to have a child at North Salem, and they were the winners. So thank you as well to JB Hunt for that. That'll make a big difference in that school. Any other questions on the consent agenda items? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Mrs. Benko. And the motion carries. We'll move on now to the Capital Project Steering Committee section. We have 3 change orders to discuss tonight. Mr. Nelson, could you just give us some highlights on each of these change orders before we vote on them?
Yeah, these are 3 change orders, all from the excavating contract or excavating prime. One is for $3,749.09. It was to install a temporary roof drain, one that wasn't picked up on the original scope of work. The second one, got them out of order here. Number 4 is for $4,600. One of the things we found was we had due to some elevation changes over a water line, we had to add some earth, and it created a kind of a pooling spot back next to the new multipurpose field. So we're going to install some hydro blocks to help get that water out away from that corner for $4,600. And then the third one, number 5, is for $3,449.66. And that was a section we had to remove and replace unsuitable soils in the turf field area. We had a spring down about 12 feet, and we had to dig it out and put some rock and geotech fabric back in and stabilize it. So with these 3, we are still $4,868.95 ahead. So we still haven't spent any extra money here yet, so that's a good thing. Crabtree is doing an excellent job. It's not all me. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve change order number 3, York Excavating Company, LLC, in the amount of $3,749.09.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve change order number 4, York Excavating Company, LLC, in the amount of $4,600.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. And finally, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve change order number 5, York Excavating Company, LLC, in the amount of $3,449.66.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. Moving on to the Dover Eagle Foundation, we did have a meeting with community representatives last week. And I'm pleased to report we have a board officially seated. Now we have Mrs. Gwen Murphy is serving as the president, and Mr. Jim Snellbaker is serving as the vice president of the organization. We had some great conversation about what the foundation can do for the district and what the district can do with the foundation, and the opportunities that are there to look at other revenue sources to help drive some additional dollars in here without impacting our tax base. So it was a great meeting, and we're excited about the plans for them to move forward. Mrs. Kroom, I didn't know if there's anything you want to add.
We were thrilled. We awarded a couple grants that night, and we are going to award a couple more next month. We needed just some more information. So very excited about that as well.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the York Adams Academy. Mr. Emig.
We had our winter graduation December the 11th of 2018. Due to another commitment, I could not attend, but I believe Dr. Melody was in attendance, so I want to thank her for being there. Our next meeting will be on January the 29th, and so far, from the latest report, out of 18 seats there, we have 7 seats occupied.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Emig? Okay, York County School of Technology, Mr. DeLauder.
Really haven't had a meeting since early November, so I really have nothing to report on that. We do have a meeting coming up on January 30th, so maybe have something at February meeting.
Okay. We do tonight have an action item for the York County School of Technology. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the York County School of Technology general operating budget for the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion?
Does this operating budget include the new building they're putting up?
Good question. I believe it does, as part of the bond repayments. It does, yes.
And is this operating budget a fair amount of an increase because of that building?
It was a 3% average increase for participating schools. Most of that increase goes to the contractual obligations. So there was really no increase in spending at this point.
Any other questions? Okay, Mrs. Benko. And the motion carries. Okay, next up is LIU Special Education with Mr. Deschaux.
We had our meeting on January 8th. At that meeting, we voted to accept the hiring of our new executive director, Dr. West. He's coming from the LIU out in Nebraska, and he starts with us April 1st. And our next meeting's February 5th.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Deschaux? Okay, legislative, Mr. Rawhauser, our governor started his second term today. Anything to report?
That's what I was going to say. He was.
I took your thunder, huh?
You took away what I was.
Anything else exciting?
Not on legislative.
All right, then how about the York Learning Center?
No, that meeting was canceled. Probably one of the reasons was I was here at board meeting last month. I mean, in November, so we should be meeting next week.
Thank you.
Now, hold on. I want another committee. You're invited to the Dover Township and Borough of Dover invites you to provide input to the Joint Comprehensive Plan that has started, well, it was started last year already. Our first meeting was last week. There was 12 of us there, if I'm correct. We had to answer questions. They took our pictures. So we'll be put on the website, I guess. They have already met with sports teams and the the booster clubs, or they were going to get input. The meeting dates were all publicized in the Dover Township News on the front page. The next meeting coming up is February 13th at 6 to 8 p.m. at the Dover Township Community Building. I guess I could say I signed up for committee, and we got to try and figure out how we want the township to be and the borough to work in the next 10 years. Instead of hiring somebody to write it, they want to try and get the taxpayers to make comments. And it's going to take 12 to 18 months to get this completed. So it'll be educational in the process.
Thank you. PSBA, Mrs. Brinton is not with us tonight. She is traveling for business. I do not have anything else to report on that. Mrs. Cream, did you have anything from PSBA that you wanted to share? Okay. Mrs. Herman, the Dover Industrial Development Committee.
No report.
Superintendent's report, Mrs. Cream.
All right, so January is Board Appreciation Month, and tonight we had a lovely dinner. Thank you, Helen, so much. It was wonderful with the board. Our school board members are just ordinary citizens. They're your neighbors and your friends with extraordinary dedication to our community and our children. They provide a vital service in our community. Public education is the backbone of American society, and local school boards are deeply rooted in United States tradition. Our Board of Education establishes a vision for the education program, maintains the structure to achieve that vision, and provides accountability to the community. Each member is a strong advocate for continuous improvement in student learning. The job of a school board member is tough, the hours are long, and the thanks are few and far between. Too often, we forget about the personal sacrifices school board members make spending hours in meetings and on committees. The month of January marks the annual observance of School Board Recognition Month. This is a time to show our appreciation and begin to better understand how local boards work together to prepare today's students to be tomorrow's leaders. We applaud them for their vision and their willingness to accept the responsibility of today's students to become tomorrow's leaders. We thank the board members serving the Dover Area School District. President, Mr. Nathan Eifert, Vice President, Mr. Charles DeLauder, Treasurer, Mr. Stephen Cook, and members, Mrs. Amy Britton, Mr. Dennis DeShow Jr., Mr. Terry Emig, Mrs. Kathy Herman, Mrs. Rachel Malley, Mr. Charles Rauhauser. We thank you for your service. And we're going to hold on, don't do it yet. So you saw your cards, but we have just a little certificate. Go, Mr. Rauhauser. Thank you for your service very much. Mr. DeShow, thank you so much. Thank you. So, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you, North Salem, and again, to all the elementary students, we so appreciate this, and again, thank you for all your service.
And that is why I do this.
That is why you do it, absolutely. And these, again, they're so stinking cute, and they were so much fun to read. You are so supportive of everything we need to do. You want to learn about what we do to make great decisions, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate that. So again, thank you so very much.
Okay. Anything else tonight on your report? You've covered a lot already in the consent agenda. Okay.
Did.
Okay. Any other comments or observations from our board members this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our last public comment period for items on or off of the agenda. It's a 2-minute period. Seeing nobody move, at this time, I would like to ask the board to stay for a brief executive session after the meeting. So at this point, we have our future meetings. This Thursday, January 17th, we have our board committee meetings at 6 p.m. and our board planning meeting at 7. And then on February 19th, we have our board action meeting at 7 p.m. So if there is nothing else to discuss tonight, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, yes?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Dude, you better clean that